We got some breaking news for you Vikings fans as the Kansas City Chiefs will be placing the franchise tag on Trey Smith. What's going on, guys? My name is Patrick Siepman, and welcome in the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. I just decided to headline this show for today. This is bad because this is not great news for the Minnesota Vikings. So what's next? We'll dive into some free agent targets, get you guys more news around the Trey Smith situation going on in Kansas City. But before we do so, I want to give you guys a friendly reminder to hit that subscribe button because any news or rumors we get this offseason around your Minnesota Vikings, we will have a video for you guys ASAP. And my bosses actually just challenged me to pick up 15 subscribers on today's show. So if you guys could help me out, go down there and hit that subscribe button. So as Jordan Schultz, who's having a whirlwind of a week in Indianapolis at the scouting combine, if you know, you know. But Schultz tweeted this out, saying the Chiefs will be placing the franchise tag on Pro Bowl guard Trey Smith, sources tell NFL on Fox. The goal is still to work out a long-term deal, but for now, the tag ensures he stays in Kansas City. Negotiations will continue. And then also Jeremy Fowler confirmed that, saying Kansas City plans to hammer out a long-term deal with Smith, a priority entering free agency. And the franchise tag for him will either be $24 or $26 million. It's not specifically for an offensive guard. It is for all players on the offensive line. So obviously tackles are getting upward, $30 million almost per year. So it just comes down to the medium of the top 10 guys, which will probably be around 24 or 26 million. But from the Vikings perspective, this changes everything. You can't really underreact or undervalue, now the free agency plan absolutely changed for the Minnesota Vikings. Because I do think Kwesi and this front office, their plan A was to sign Trey Smith to a 4-year, $110 million deal or whatever that figure, or 5-year, $110 million deal or whatever the figure would have ended up being. So this changes their plan 110%. But I also think this could potentially lead to maybe a team calling the Chiefs about a trade, because if you guys remember last offseason, they placed a franchise tag on L'Jarius Sneed. Then they ended up trading him to the Tennessee Titans. So could that be the same situation here, playing out with Trey Smith? I think it's unlikely, but let's just say the long-term contract talks break down between Smith and his camp and the Kansas City Chiefs. Could the Vikings step in and trade for him? Again, unlikely, but it does officially confirm that the Trey Smith dream is, pretty much dead on him coming to the Minnesota Vikings. So what's plan B? Let's dive into it. And Drew Dalman. This is going to be priority number one. This is going to be plan A for the rest of the free agency period here for the Minnesota Vikings. Center from the Atlanta Falcons, 26 years old, hitting the prime of his NFL career. And if the Vikings do decide to cut Garrett Bradbury, which honestly I can make an argument that Garrett Bradbury, like this Trey Smith news, I don't want to say guarantees Bradbury's going to get cut, but I definitely think it makes it a lot more likely that he will be released from the Minnesota Vikings. And if you do cut Bradbury, Drew Dalman has to be the number one option. And honestly, I can make an argument Drew Dalman should be the number one free agent target as it stands right now for the Minnesota Vikings, because this guy, 26 years old, hitting the prime of his career, and over the last 2 seasons, he has been awesome for the Atlanta Falcons, only giving up 4 sacks in about 23 games played over the last 2 years. Great run blocker, pretty solid in pass protection, is overall a very, very good center. And you could still formulate a very solid offensive line where if you maybe go plug and play at the guard spots, then you get Drew Dalman in at center, you have that center of the future for J.J. McCarthy, still have the 2 good tackles on the outsides. I like that idea. And this also opens up the possibility, and we'll talk about this on a future show, but maybe they're going to actually end up tossing big money to a defensive lineman or a cornerback in free agency. But more on the offensive line here, we can kick at the guard, Kevin Zeitler, who I've been, pounding the table for the Vikings to sign him for the last couple of weeks. And now with the latest Trey Smith news, I mean, it's even that times 10 here. I think Kevin Zeitler should be up there as some of their biggest priorities. Now, listen, he is a little older, but he's coming off an awesome year with the Detroit Lions. Yes, he's turning 36, but he was still amazing for Detroit. And, if he wants to stay in the Midwest, come over to the Minnesota Vikings. I also do believe the Chicago Bears would be a big player in Zeitler, as they were big on Trey Smith, and also Ben Johnson heading over there. Maybe Zeitler just follows Johnson, but Zeitler this past season, unbelievable year. Now, did he benefit from playing next to some of the best offensive lineman in the league, like a Penei Sewell, 110%, but he was still great. I mean, 86.8 overall grade, pass block 71.8, run block 87.2, allowed 5 sacks, but still in the run game, this guy was a mauler. He would be a great pickup, and plus this would give the Vikings just at least one more year to find maybe their offensive guard of the future in the draft, because you only have 4 picks this next draft, 1 first, 1 third, 2 fifths. It's going to be hard to find that guy of the future in one of those 4 draft picks, but if you just go plug and play with Zeitler, I like that idea. Another plug and play guy here, Brandon Scherf. And he's been connected for the Vikings, it feels like, for the last 5 seasons, if we're being honest. Like, remember when he was in Washington and we were saying, oh, maybe Brandon Scherf could confoul Kirk Cousins. Vikings struck out there. But I do think he, very similar to Zeitler, older guy, 33 years old, but he could be another solid option at that offensive guard spot. And, just those first 3 names we talked about, Dahlman, Zeitler, and Scherf, if those are the 3 at your interior, you have a very, very good offensive line considering the tackles you have around them. And listen, this past season, PFF graded him out pretty middle of the pack, nothing special, but nothing bad whatsoever. 64.7 overall grade, pass block 75 overall, run block 57.3, and 0 sacks allowed on the season for Brandon Scherf. So I like what he's about. He's a veteran, very intelligent offensive lineman. I think he could be a good guy to also have in that locker room and help develop some of these young guys, that would be potential backups next season. But I'll ask you guys this on the Trey Smith news, and we'll get to 2 more names here in a second. How devastated are you? Just scale it for me. 1 to 10 down below in the comments section. I know a lot of us wanted the Vikings to get Trey Smith, but that's just not going to happen. So you guys let me know, how devastated are you after the latest Trey Smith news? We'll get to 2 more names here in a second, but first, I want to tell you guys about today's presenting sponsor, and that is Prize Picks. Now, if you guys download the Prize Picks app today and plug in that promo code CLNS, you guys will get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Now, what is Prize Picks? Well, Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. And if you guys are watching the Timberwolves or the Wild play a game for the remainder of their season, any of Prize Picks lineup and following it along throughout the entire event just increases your viewing experience. It makes it that much more enjoyable to watch those games. So give them a chance. The link for this will be in the comments and description of today's show. Download the app today. Use promo code CLNS. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. But massive, massive shout out to Prize Picks for sponsoring today's show. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, let's dive into the last 2 free agent targets here for the Vikes. But overall, just disappointing news, man. And, I will say it definitely makes the Vikings free agency period a lot more interesting because now you could toss money to a defensive lineman like a Milton Williams, Osa Odigizua. Like you could toss big money to either of those 2 guys. Maybe you go get a guy like DJ Reed, but, still focus back in here on the offensive lineman. We could talk about James Daniels, guard for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Had a really, really strong start to a season last year before getting injured. He only played in 4 games, so that's why his snaps are a lot lower in 2024. But his PFF grades in those 4 games was 92.6. He was having an awesome season, and he's just been very, very consistent. Like these numbers right here from 2020 to 2023 aren't going to blow you away, but he is consistent. He was with the Bears before he got to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but hey, 2020, 65.8, in the 70s in 2021, and then back in the mid-60s, in 2022 and 2023. But this past year, in those 4 games, he was awesome, man. 92.9 overall grade, only allowed 1 sack and 1 hit and 3 hurries, and did not have a single penalty. I think he would be an interesting option on a – let me just double-check what his contract projection is supposed to be here for James Daniels, but he would be an interesting choice, no doubt. Only had 1 penalty or 0 penalties past season, only allowed 5 pressures, was an Iowa Hawkeye back in college. But another name I'm interested in is Willie Fries. Now, Will Fries, very similar to James Daniels, was awesome at the start of the season, then obviously ended up getting hurt. But in that very limited action, man, he was incredible for the Indianapolis Colts. Actually, week 1 against the Houston Texans, and as we know, the Texans have an unbelievable offensive line. He had a 93 overall grade, 91.7 in the run block, and then 80.4 in the pass block, only allowing 1 pressure in that game. But he is a true right guard. That's where his bread and butter is throughout his NFL career. He's never played any other position except for during his rookie year. He had 11 snaps at the left guard spot. But in 2021, 54.8, 22, 58.4, 2023, 61.2 in terms of his PFF grades. In this past season in 24, the best one by far of his NFL career at 86.9. Now, also a guy like Mekhi Becton, we heard the Eagles really want to bring him back, and I think Becton will have a lot of interest in returning to Philadelphia. So I think that one's unlikely. But again, what if the Eagles, they decide to pay like Zach Bond and a bunch of the other free agents? Maybe they'll let Becton walk, and then I think Becton would become, if it's not Dahlman, probably priority number one for me for the Minnesota Vikings. But, overall, not good news here on Trey Smith. It's just not good. But you guys let me know how devastated you are after the Trey Smith news. Scale it 1 to 10 down below in the comments section. Now, if you guys also want to hit me up on Twitter for more news and rumors around your Minnesota Vikings, that's a handle right there, @PatSieps. Give me a follow over there, and we'll see you guys next time. As always, Skol Vikes.